So in topic 9, we also have configuration and coordination of our network design. So let's dive into it. So we have Texas Instruments. They had their aha moment. They had a consultant group come in and talk to them and said that they didn't have an option. They needed to go global. Well, a big company like Texas Instruments, not realizing on their own that they needed it globally to go global. Well, their network wasn't efficient. So wasted resources were hurting their competitiveness in the world. So, well, you might be familiar with Texas Instruments. They weren't everywhere because they had competitors. So, where in the world should we locate to add value to our activities? That's what our configuration is. We need to add value to our activities, and that's based on our location. So coordination. So how can we connect these locations that are all around the world so they can work as if they were right next to each other? And right now, that's critical. I should be able to pick up a phone and get a hold of somebody and be like, I just looked over the cubicle wall or walked around the corner to somebody else's office. Should be that seamless. So our configuration decisions are based on our goals. So Alcoa, they need access to their resource. They melt, the minerals and make metal out of it. So they need to be close to their resources. They don't really have an option there. But if we're looking for scale economies, we either need to build larger facilities and fewer of them, or if scale isn't important to us, we need to build many locations, but smaller locations, smaller operations. But if we're looking for those relationships and collaboration is important to us, we need to be closer to our partners. Have you ever seen one company built right next to another one? Well, they might be partners and one might be selling materials to the other. And it's not difficult to drive it across the parking lot, right? Or drive it out to the road around the corner and to their purchaser. So it's that easy sometimes. Sometimes they actually have a location on site of another company. It depends on how that relationship is. Now, image. If you want to appear to be local, be in the local area. So you are considered to be local by the key market. For example, here it's got Toyota. Toyota has a plant in West Virginia that builds engines. Well, those Toyota appears to be local because they're employing local people. You see their dealerships all over the area, so they appear to be a local business. So that kind of gives a better reputation or appearance of a reputation to some people. So coordination, in the case of Boeing, they needed to create economies, but they also needed a competitive cost structure. Boeing's an aircraft company. They can almost build those anywhere and just fly it to where it needs to go, right? However, if you want to have that part where the customer comes on to your site and takes a look at what the manufacturing is going on, if they're building a new Air Force One, for example, the president's plane for the United States, well, I'm sure there's a lot of people that want to take a look at that manufacturing process to make sure it's done right and it meets all these other requirements. Well, it's very costly to send them, put them on a different plane to fly them to that location, get a rental car, hotel, whatever it needs to be. That's a lot of hassle. But if they're local, it's a lot easier. So you put it near where your customers are, right? Could be good. So how do we figure out where we're going to go? Well, we have several different things. So one process to do it all, but several ways to look at it. So we have essentially two phases. One, we need to do our background information. So we need to look at our configuration and our coordination. What is our value proposition for our company? What about our strategy or our readiness to go global? And the nature and the level of our competition. Is it fierce? Is it, pretty minor? And how profitable do we want this to be? I mean, of course, we want it to be extremely profitable, but do we want to see a 10% profit out of this location or a 50% profit? So we have some costs and other constraints with that, right? Well, let's look at phase 2 here. We got to get the location. So we need to pick a country. What country offers the best operating conditions for what we're doing? There's a lot of different possibilities out there. So then we need to look at the community. You can consider that as either a state or a county in the United States. Here we have those geographic boundaries or the political boundaries. So if you're looking to put a new plant in, you might consider West Virginia, or you might consider North Carolina, Texas, California. It depends on what you're looking for, right? So does it make sense to operate within the country though? So if we're looking at it, we might look at Ohio, for example, and say, okay, well that's great, but looking at West Virginia, and that's better for us. That could work out. There might be some things West Virginia has that Ohio doesn't. But finally, when we look at our sites, we're going to actually take a look at, let's say, cities. So we can look at West Virginia and see, okay, Charleston, it's okay. All right, Beckley, that's all right too. Oh, we looked at Morgantown. Hey, that's awesome. A great university, a lot of intelligent students coming out of that university that we can use in our company. Lots of area around here. There's an established city that's growing. So all these different things could be factors. Look at major highways. Morgantown is essentially on the intersection of 2 major highways in West Virginia. So if they want to ship something up to Pennsylvania, they can do that. If they want to ship it south, they can. Not a problem. So when we're looking at it, what specific site locations offer? What are their advantages? What are their disadvantages? So let's say Morgantown. What's an advantage of Morgantown? Well, you have a pretty intelligent workforce. But what's a disadvantage here? Sometimes the roads during certain times of the day, right? Trying to cross in front of the mountain there, it's a little tough. So there's pluses and minuses. So this is how you guys would figure out to go from choosing a country all the way down to the local site decision. So let's see here. So we've already gone through phase 1, right? So you got to figure out this background stuff so we can figure this out. Because all this information is going to lead us into phase 2. Our country decision, our community decision, and then our site decision. What are those advantages to that site? Is it better to be in Shanghai in China, or is it better to be in Beijing, China? Who knows, right? It depends on your phase 1 information. Now, what advantages are there, right? So using this process, we can get it narrowed down to, let's say, the city level. Of course, you need to find real estate, right? If you're going to build a facility, and you talk to the local government and try to get tax breaks and all that kind of stuff. But doing this process will get you 90% of the way there. After this, it's really where you kind of get political, and you get the lawyers involved, and you get the accountants involved, and all these other people. But you can get the ideal locations narrowed down, and from there, the world is your oyster.